G'day, Lee here from Martinuzzi Property Group with EXP Australia. Hope you're having a fantastic week. This is typically my weekly real estate market update where I outline some of the trends and price growth and things like that that are happening in the real estate market, whether that's locally here on the Sunshine Coast or across Australia. I still am writing my weekly blog, sometimes twice a week, to keep you informed of what's happening in the marketplace. So again, you can head on over to martinuzzi.com.au and read all those updates weekly, twice weekly even. And you can also subscribe to my YouTube channel where I post a lot of the content as well that we're talking about daily, weekly in the property market space. Now, when you go to martinuzzi.com, make sure you do subscribe. There is a button there so you can stay up to date with all the latest articles that we're launching there as well. So today I wanted to talk about contracts. And again, I want to do this because I believe there's a lot of misinformation out there. And I believe in the industry, homeowners are ill-informed about what the process is of sales. So my job is, and my passion is, to try and give as much information as I can so people can make the best decisions moving forward on their property journey. Now, if you've never sold before, you'll be very uncertain about the sales process and how offers are presented. Maybe you have sold before, but it's been 13 years or a long time since the last sale, and maybe things have changed or you've just forgotten about the process. So hope this video helped today. Let me know if it does. You can leave a comment below to give me your feedback. What do you think? Now, when contracts are made, this is why I think there's a lot of confusion in this space, and my ideal goal here is to create less confusion so homeowners feel more confident when they're selling their property. And I believe there's a lot of confusion is because a lot of agents do things quite differently. I believe there's an ethical legal standard that we should be following in the real estate industry, but everyone does their things differently for whatever reason. They've got their own practices, their own values, their own ideals, their own work ethics, etc., etc. So here's what I believe is the best process when selling your property and receiving offers. Now, it's an agent's obligation to present all offers unless the owner otherwise stipulates, but it's our obligation to present all offers to a property seller, to our clients. Now, when we get people coming through the open home or inspections, whether it's open homes or private viewings, we will typically get a gauge for people and their interest. Now, naturally, when you're selling a home, you'll have maybe 50% of the marketplace that are just starting to do their research and looking, so therefore not really committing to any feedback around price or committing to making offers on properties. And the other portion of the market, they're sort of a bit more serious and a bit more active. And when they find the right thing, that's when they'll start indicating that they're interested and wanting to make offers. So I think that's really important to understand that. And you'll always find that with open homes, at least, that half of the buyers are not discounted or disregarded, but they're just not at that part yet where they're serious about making offers. The other buyers will start to talk to the agents about, their interest in the property. They'll start making subtle hints and asking questions about the property. And then they might even start talking about price expectations and what they would think is a fair price. Now, a good agent will naturally be able to talk to a buyer about price and be able to draw that out from them as well. Now, that's good feedback for a client. And I think you have to take that on board because naturally every buyer has an ideal price in their mind that they want to spend and don't want to go above. And naturally, all buyers, want to get the best price for a property, but usually there's some room to move. So a good agent will be able to, through questioning of a buyer, will be able to figure out, if there's much room for them to move. Are they coming in at a sort of lowball sort of price or offer, or will they have more flexibility to go up? So that is the first part of when you're getting offers on interest and feedback on your property. But understand this, it's really not a serious committed offer until it's written into a contract. Now, I know there's a lot of agencies and agents across Australia that will present offers verbally and sometimes just as a written sort of informal offer on a piece of paper, whether that's a digital expression of interest form or just a handwritten note that they've created for their buyers to fill in. Now, that's fine, and it's good feedback, again, for the campaign to navigate, what is fair price in the market for your property at the moment. But it's not really serious until it gets into a contract. And I believe that we should always, when making offers on properties, put it into a contract for the buyers to sign and then present it to the owners to consider. And the reasons why I strongly believe this is important is, number one, when it's a verbal offer or expressions of interest, it's not a legally binding contract. And so therefore, nothing's guaranteed and either party could pull out at any time for that reason. Secondly, I think it highlights, because in a contract, it actually stipulates the price, the deposits, the settlement dates, the terms and conditions of the contract that are very important for a seller to make a decision about whether that contract's suitable for their interests moving forward or not. And when it's a verbal offer, expressions of interest, some of those details can sometimes be missed until it goes into a contract and then be noticed. So I think that's really important to understand. And also for a seller, if you have a verbal offer come through, it might sound very, fantastic, but then a day later or an hour later, the buyer might come back and say, we've found something else, we're going down that direction now. And suddenly your hopes have been quite deflated because you've had this verbal offer presented, thought everything was going through, and then it's been taken away. So I think when selling your property, best practice for your agent would be to put in writing the buyer's offer and then get the buyer to sign it and then present it to the owner. Now, if you have multiple offers, which happens sometimes, there is a special best practice form up here in Queensland, at least through the REIQ that we use, called a multiple offer form. And that highlights to a buyer that, hey, we're not playing games, but we do actually have other offers, and we get them to sign that as well when presenting those offers. So that's in a multiple offer situation. Now, if you're a homeowner and you've got, your house on the market, it's been on the market for a few weeks, and suddenly you've got 3 contract written offers signed by 3 different buyer parties, that's a really good place to be. And you've got really good ability to make a good decision about which offer's the best for you. And I'll go through that in a second. But first of all, I want to just highlight that when doing contract signing at the moment, most things have gone digital, right? And I think this is really important to note that it is in your best interest for a buyer and a seller to make sure your conveyancer or a solicitor looks over the contract before you sign it. Now, most agents, at least up here where I operate, will use a standard operating contract that's available through the industry body. Ours is Real Estate Industry of Queensland. So most agents will use that contract, but there are others out there as well. But regardless of that, it's in your best interest to look over a contract. Now, agents can advise you on the details of the contract and how it looks, but they're not allowed to give legal advice. And that's why good agents will always advise their buyers and sellers to make sure they have a conveyancer or a solicitor, if they will, to look over the contract before they commit to signing that contract. Now, in this day and age, being digital, everything's done electronically, and I love that process. I think it makes things much more efficient. But just keep in mind that sometimes agents might rush people to sign without going through the details of the contract, because 6 years ago, it used to be face-to-face and would go through page by page of all the points related to that contract, and then still encourage the buyer or seller to contact their solicitor to go over that contract. So just be mindful of that. I think it's best to make sure you get a copy of the contract to review in full yourself before signing anything electronically, and that's just via email as a PDF. And then make sure your conveyancer looks over that. Now, this is one of the concerns that I have a lot from parties, buyers and sellers alike, is that conveyance will charge us every time they look over a contract. Well, that's generally not the case. Most good conveyancers that I work with will make sure they'll review as many contracts as you need without charging you a fee each time they do that. So I think that's important to remember as well. I know some solicitors and conveyancers might charge to review these things, but look for ones that offer that as part of their service. I think that's important to note. Now, when you get those offers on the table, usually in the contract, there's many elements to review, but the key elements are really the price, the deposit amounts, the settlement timeframes, and any terms and conditions that the contract is subject to being satisfied before the contract becomes official. And that's when we call it unconditional. And then there's just a time frame between unconditional and settlement. Usually the typical points are, number 1 is the price, number 2 is the deposit, and that's an initial and balance deposit up to 10% here in Queensland. And look, that deposit does matter. Obviously a smaller deposit may give you some hesitation around the financial stability of the buyer. Then the typical terms and conditions are building and pest. So in Queensland, most buyers will do their own building and pest. Sometimes that's not the case for auction properties, for example, which aren't very common up here. Some homeowners might do a building and pest and offer it to the buyers to review. But I still find that a lot of buyers, even if there is a building and pest available, they'll still want to do their own. So a typical condition in that contract is building and pest, usually around 7 days, sometimes a bit longer, depending on the circumstances of the buyer. The other condition is usually finance as well, 7 to 14 days finance. Most buyers that I have coming through making written offers in a contract have their finance all in order and they've been pre-approved, ready to make offers. Sometimes that's not the case, but generally I find that is the case. And I'll always talk to buyers and encourage them to get pre-approved before they start making offers, because they can make their offer more attractive as well. And the final point really is settlement timeframes. Is that 30 days? Is it 60 days? How does that look? Now, there can be more conditions to a contract, like a buyer is selling their house, so the contract is subject to the sale of their house before they move forward. There's things like that to consider too. So lots of things to consider, but most importantly, I think, number one, when selling your property, make sure your agent brings you offers in a contract that are signed by the buyer so you can really consider it. Number two, make sure you review the contract yourself, but also get your conveyancer to look over it to make sure everything's in order and there's nothing hidden in there that's going to scare you a little bit later on. Your agent should be able to inform you of everything in there anyway, but I still think it's a good idea to get some legal advice on that before signing a contract. And number three, if you have multiple offers, it's not always the highest price that wins the race, right? Because sometimes there might be terms and conditions that are more favorable. For example, a cash offer that's at a reasonable price, maybe a little bit under the next best offer, but has no conditions, might make more sense for you to get sold and move forward with your property journey. I hope this information is helpful to you. Again, you can jump onto martinuzzi.com.au to read all my weekly market updates. This is a very long form video, but I do hope you've enjoyed it and found some value in it. Let me know again what you think below by leaving some comments there for me. Now, if you're in the property market and you're looking to sell your property, we'd love to discuss your options with you, catch up for a coffee and have a bit of a chat about what your requirements are and what you're looking to achieve so that we can tailor a campaign to fit your needs. Any information you need, we're always here to help, whether you're a buyer or a seller. So give us a call, give us an email, and we'll be in touch with you. Have a great day ahead. Have a great week. We'll talk soon.